everyone. For those of you that might be new to our channel, my name is Ro.
And I'm David.
And today we're going to talk about our scariest experiences on the road. As many of you know, we have been on the road traveling full-time in our RV behind us for almost 4 years now. And that means we have had a couple of scary experiences. So I know we have talked about a few of these in some videos, but there are some that we haven't shared before. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about those in today's video.
Now this first situation is definitely the scariest one we've been in the entire time we've been on the road. And oddly enough, it happened within the first month of us being on the road. We were staying in the Green Mountain National Forest in Vermont, and we were at a dispersed campsite like we always are, and it was very early in the morning, like 5, maybe 6 a.m., and Ro wakes me up from a dead sleep, very frantically saying, "David, there's a bear on the truck. There is a bear on the truck." And I just snap out of sleep. I look out the window, and sure enough, there is a black bear on top of our truck. Now back then, we didn't have this camper shell. We just had a tri-fold leather tonneau cover. And this bear is just up on top of it, just slashing into it, just shredding the tonneau cover, trying to get to whatever was inside of our truck. Now this bear was very clearly habituated to humans and had found food in the back of trucks before, and he knew that there was probably some food back there. But we knew at the time that, you don't do anything like that. You have to be bear aware. So we didn't have anything in the back of our truck for him to get into, but he went around digging it anyway. Thankfully, we were able to scare him off of the truck after a little bit of time by making really loud noises. But before he ran off, he actually snarled at me, showed his teeth, and I could see the claws that he had. And it was at that moment that I was like, oh my God, bears are for real. I had never seen one in person until now. And he destroyed a camping table we had. He slashed open one of our big water jugs. And so we had to get rid of those and get new ones. But, after that, we learned even more about what to do when you're in areas that bears are also in, just to make sure that none of them come, around your campsite. So the lesson we can give you guys from this situation is to be bear aware when you're in bear country. And on the Forest Service's website, they've got just a ton of information on how you can be safe and protect yourself from bears when camping in bear country.
About 2 years ago, David and I were camping near a tiny town in New Mexico called Farmington, New Mexico. And we were out on BLM land. We had actually had a really tough time a couple days before that finding a campsite because the areas where we wanted to camp had been shut down because people were abusing the areas. We did finally find a nice big site. It did take a while to get into, and it was pretty far off of the main road. So we knew that no one else was probably going to camp there with us. And we didn't have signal where we were at. So we drove all the way into town, which was about a half an hour one-way drive, to go to a Starbucks to upload the video that had to go out that week. Well, as we were sitting down and opening our laptops to get ready to work for a couple of hours, we opened up our cameras feed on our phones because we had outdoor cameras set up watching our door so that we could see if anybody came around or anything like that, just for security reasons. And I pull it up, and we stare at it, nothing seems out of the ordinary, and I'm staring at it for a second, and I turn to David, and I say, "What is this random little round piece right here that is sticking out the front of our RV? There's nothing there. We didn't leave anything outside, right?" And he goes, "No." And we look at it closer and closer, and we realize that has to be the front of a vehicle or something, or the corner of a vehicle, like someone's little end of a light. And we were both just like, are we really seeing this? Is this really what's happening right now? Someone's in front of our trailer? Now, the reason we were freaked out is because they were at the front of our trailer, right on our trailer hitch and out of the view of our cameras. So we didn't know what they were doing. We did set off the camera alarm with no results. No one ever came out. No one came to the door, nothing. We tried to speak through the speakerphone to say, "Hello, we can see you out there. What are you doing?" Again, no answer. About 10 minutes pass and David has already left he wants to go and see what's happening because while we have a lock on the hitch of our trailer, we were worried that someone was trying to break it off and then hook up to our trailer and pull away. Why else would someone be parked at the very tip of our trailer out of the view of our cameras in the middle of nowhere? It made no sense, and we were pretty scared. So David gets all the way there, and there's nobody there. Well, as he was pulling onto the dirt road, it was probably only about a mile or so, I see the truck pull forward, and I can tell it's a red truck, and I'm on the phone with David, and I'm just like, it's a red truck, it's a red truck. If you see them, ask them what's going on, make sure, everything's okay. He never sees them as he pulls in, gets to the campsite, he walks all around, and all he has found is a bunch of trash. They pulled over in front of our campsite, right at the hitch of our trailer, where it seemed they were hiding from our security cameras to have lunch and leave all their trash behind. It was very unnerving, and while nothing bad came of that, we learned a very valuable lesson, and it's basically to have really good security cameras and make sure that you have a really good hitch lock for weird situations like that, because who knows what would have happened if we didn't have a hitch lock on our trailer.
This next scary situation actually happened while we were traveling. We were towing our trailer with our truck, and we were going east on I-70 in Colorado. Now, this was around early May, and so we didn't think that there was going to be any, winter weather that we would go through. And so we weren't really paying that close attention to the forecast along our route, which was our downfall. We were going through Vail, Colorado, and it started to rain. And we didn't really think much of it. Vail is pretty high in elevation, but we just didn't really think much of it. It started to sprinkle. And then it started to downpour. And as we're climbing on I-70 toward the Roosevelt Pass, which is over 11,000 feet elevation, which we didn't know until the time, as we continued to climb from Vail, Colorado, it switched from rain to a rain-snow mix to just coming down in snow. It was snowing so hard that you couldn't even see any tracks in the road. We were the ones making the tracks with our truck and our trailer, and all the cars were following behind us, despite the fact that we were only going like 15 to 20 mile an hour on the interstate, because, they were just letting us plow the way, unfortunately, and our truck is not four-wheel drive. This wouldn't have been all that frightening if our truck was four-wheel drive, but it's only two-wheel drive. It does have a locking differential on the back, and we do have all-terrain tires, but that's still not really that great of a substitute for four-wheel drive. What made this really frightening is that it was pitch black outside, and it was snowing so hard that I could barely see in front of me. Like I said, we slowed down all the way to 15 to 20 mile an hour, and we were really climbing. It was a steep incline, so I'm worried that the truck and the trailer might start to just slip and just kind of fall down into maybe the shoulder, slide off the road or something. And we actually got to the point where we were like, okay, we need to just pull over and we're just gonna wait the storm out. We've got plenty of propane. We can just turn the furnace on and we'll be warm for the rest of the night. But we didn't realize that just before we decided, that we needed to pull over, we had passed the last rest stop already. And so we just keep climbing and climbing, and we're not seeing another place to pull over. And on top of that, we had no cell signal. Our cell phones were completely in a dead zone, so we couldn't even check when the snow ended. So I'm just white knuckling up this steep incline on I-70 until we finally get to the Roosevelt Pass, and we're like, oh my gosh, okay, this is it. We're at the peak, and it's a tunnel, and we get into the tunnel, and then on the other side, it just starts going down and dropping down. And we know that as long as we can just hold on and make it through this, eventually the snow is going to go back to rain and we're going to be fine. And thankfully it did. We made it out. We made it out of the snowstorm, back into rain. And then the rain went from a downpour to a drizzle, and as we came into Denver, Colorado, it was completely dry. So the lesson we learned from this that we can pass on to you guys is if you're going into high elevation, like 11,000 feet, then even if it's in May, you may still hit a snowstorm because it's just going to be so much colder up there, especially at night on top of everything, than it is down at lower elevations. So you really, really just need to pay very close attention to the weather forecast along your route.
This next story is one that many of you may already be aware of, and it's because we did make a whole video on this way back when it happened. And if you want to know all of the details, you can go ahead and check that video out. We'll leave a little link right here for you to check it out, but I'll give you a quick synopsis. And we were camping in Oregon in the Fremont-Waianae National Forest so that we could go and visit Crater Lake. And we had been there for just a couple of days. And we had already known we were allowed to camp there because I am very thorough when I'm looking for campsites. I make sure that we are camping where we're allowed to be, that we are within regulations so that we can camp there, you know, so like fire seasons can shut down some camping areas, so on and so forth. I had even received a map from the National Forest Rangers on their website that gave literal detailed little spots along the camping roads which were designated campsites we could camp in. And we were in one of those campsites. We knew we were perfectly allowed to be where we were, and all of a sudden this white vehicle comes driving down the road, and it slows down and it stops in front of our camper. And our back window was actually facing the road. So we got to watch her pull up, slow down, and then stop. She gets out of her vehicle and she stands there for a second and she stares at us, and then she starts to get closer and yells, "Excuse me." And I get up, we were still eating breakfast, I believe, I was still in my jammies, and I go and I open the door and I asked her if I could help her. And I thought maybe she needed directions, I was just trying to be friendly, and then she goes and tells me, "You're not allowed to camp here." And she was getting really belligerent. She called us yuppies? What?
Yahoos.
Yahoos? I don't know. She called us some weird names, and I was getting really anxious, so I was no longer able to talk to her. So David went outside, and he's a people person. He was very easily able to actually calm her down, and she ended up driving off. But while she was still here, I tried to call the forest ranger station, but they were closed and no one answered. So she was threatening us with calling the authorities. So I decided just to call the authorities myself instead, and I ended up getting a hold of the fire chief, and he was a very kind man. He ended up coming out instantly. He wanted to know right where we were, and he stood around and he talked to us for 15-20 minutes or so, let us know that we are perfectly in our rights to camp there. There are no shutdowns in the area for camping, and if she were to come back, just call him. So he gave us his card, he wished us well, and he drove off. And she had driven farther into the woods and was gone for about 45 minutes, even while he was here talking to us. And then she drove out without saying a word to us. So it ended up ending very calmly, and we got to continue camping there. But the thing that really scared us is that the fire chief knew who she was, and even said that she's known around the area as Crazy Cheryl. So, knowing that some crazy lady had come out to our campsite to try and kick us out made us very uneasy, and we really didn't want to stay. So we ended up seeing only what we wanted to see, which was Crater Lake, and then we left very shortly afterwards. But the lesson we learned from this is to know where you're allowed to camp, how long you're allowed to camp there, know all of the regulations, make sure that you are in the right so that if somebody does come and try and kick you out, especially if they are not law enforcement, you can stand your ground and you can contact the appropriate people to come out and help you.
Our next scary situation involves these three critters here. And we were staying in Moab, Utah, and we were actually with Thomas and Stacy from I'm Not Lost, I'm RVing, and we were over hanging out in their Class B that they had at the time, and it was nighttime, and at some point I decided to come back over to the trailer, I think to get something to eat, and then I realized, oh, it's kind of warm in the trailer, so I left the screen door to our front door closed, but the door itself open, just so it could get some more airflow in there for the pets. And we were over with Thomas and Stacy for the rest of the night, basically, and we didn't come back over until we were ready to go to bed. So I have no idea how long passed from the time that I left, or I came back into the trailer, to when we came back. But what happened is we think that Sweetie, yes, you opened the screen door because she knows how to, and I didn't even think of this at the time, but she opened the screen door, we think, and the cats got out. So this one and Butters back there got out. We have no idea for how long, but it was dark outside, and when we came back to the trailer, we realized, wait, the screen door is open. Oh my gosh, the cats are gone. So we start freaking out. We grab our headlamps and we start looking all over for the cats, and I forget who we found first. One of the two was just like right under the trailer. She was just like right there. And then, which I think it was Alice. And then the second cat, Butters, we found back behind the trailer, only about like 20 yards away or so. But it was very frightening at first when we realized that our cats were out, because we were in the middle of the Moab Desert. We were out on BLM land. They could be anywhere. Who knows? Like maybe a coyote got them or some other type of predator. So we were freaking out. Thankfully, Sweetie, I don't know why, but she just stayed in the trailer. The door was wide open. She just hung out in here, so she didn't wander off, but the cats sure did. And but yeah, we found them, and everything in the end was totally fine. I'm just so thankful they stayed near the trailer. But yeah, our lesson to you guys is, if you travel with your pets, and if some of them are crafty and know how to open doors, leave the door closed and yes, you, I'm talking about you. Leave the door closed and locked if they know how to open the door. And don't leave your screen door as the only door that is closed if you are not there to directly supervise your pets.
This last story is from our first ever winter on the road, and we were boondocking near Anza Borrego Desert State Park in Southern California. And it was a beautiful area. We were having a great time. We had seen some amazing things, but the thing that we took away from the area the most were the incredibly strong sustained winds all the time. Now, on the particular day that I'm talking about, we were getting sustained wind gusts of over 70 miles an hour. And they were coming from about this direction. So like sort of from this back corner. And so they were pushing really strong on this back wall, and they were pushing pretty strong on this back wall over here as well. And what we were experiencing at the time was severe trailer rocking. And we actually have our solar panels up in the winter so that we can pull in the most power. And David was really worried about them being ripped off because, again, 70-mile-an-hour sustained wind. So he hurried up that morning, got on the roof, and put them down as fast as he could. He was just being bombarded by wind the whole time. He said it was really intense. But inside, what we were experiencing is what is behind me now was not here. We actually had a U dinette that came with our trailer. And this big back window right here has a seam down the middle underneath here where the different parts of the trailer connect. And what we were experiencing is down here at the seam, it was flexing. And it was flexing so hard that it was pushing our backs, because we were sitting at the dinette working on our laptops, and it was literally pushing us and moving us around. I was worried that this big back window was either going to be popped out or it was going to shatter from the flexing of the back wall or something. And we were also worried that the wind being so strong on the one side, rocking the whole trailer back and forth, we were worried, you know, how strong are these winds? Are they strong enough to knock the trailer over? So we started like frantically Googling, like, how much damage can 70-mile-an-hour winds do? And luckily nothing bad happened. It was just a very worrisome day. But for others camping near us, it was not such a nice day. There were people that hadn't even rolled their awnings out, and their awnings were ripped off the sides of their trailer. So it was a pretty intense windstorm that we had to go through, and luckily we have not had to go through something that bad since then. And now we have this awesome desk back here that David installed for us that really helps tie these three walls together. So even if we were to get really strong winds on this back wall, I don't think we would experience the same amount of flexing. I don't really know what kind of lesson for this incident to share with you guys that we've learned, except that we now know that we will never be camping near Anza Borrego Desert State Park in Southern California in the winter, because we have now learned that that is a very common occurrence. They get strong windstorms like that all the time.
So that has been our 6 scariest moments that we've experienced while on the road as full-time RVers. hopefully you guys can take some of the lessons that we've learned from these situations to potentially avoid them yourself. But go ahead and share with us down in the comments what your guys' scariest situations that you've ever experienced while traveling or camping, so that maybe we can learn from you guys too, and everyone else watching this video can learn as well. But that's all for us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jessica. Bye. Good girl. She's getting better at it.